Hello, my name is Masha Knots, and today I'm going to teach you how to make this gorgeous friendship bracelet. This bracelet is deceptively easy to make. And it's also very quick because it doesn't create all of the knots. That's what creates that effect of the strings dragging. You're literally skipping knots, and so the strings drag. This bracelet only uses forward or backward knots. There are no reverse knots at all. And I didn't even use any kind of start here, so this is very beginner friendly. All you need to know is how to make the basic knots, which are the forward knot and the backward knot. I have a separate tutorial for that. It'll be linked in the card and in the description. I would also recommend you make, I don't know, at least a candy stripe or a chevron just to get used to making the knots. But once you've done that, this is very beginner friendly. Each bracelet uses 3 colors. You need 4 strings per color. Each string should be roughly 1 meter in length. That said, let's get into the tutorial. I then taped my strings to my workspace. I didn't do any kind of start here, and I left about 10 to 15 centimeters to make ties out of later. You can do a triangle end here. If you want to do that, I would recommend doing an asymmetrical one where you bring out the 4 strings of one color on one side and the 8 strings of the 2 other colors on the other side, and then going from there. But I decided not to make any kind of start at all. Because this is a kind of bracelet where you don't make all of the knots, I feel like that kind of works with the pattern anyway. So I decided to try it. Arrange your strings by color, like so. And for the first part, we're going to work with the 2 colors on the left. So we're going to put this one off to the side. You're going to take the first string of the color on the left that is closest to the color in the middle. And with this string, you're going to make 4 forward knots, 1 on each of the strings of the second color. Once that is done, you put the string off to the side and you grab the next string that is closest to the middle color. And you do 4 knots with this string as well. Once that is done, you grab another string, do 4 knots with that, and finally the last string of the color on the left also does 4 forward knots onto each of the strings in the middle. That first diamond is now complete, and the color on the left can go off to the side, and we can bring this color back in. We're essentially going in a braid fashion. So when you do a braid, you start from one side, and you put those strings into the center. Then you go on the other side, put those strings into the center. And you go like that over and over again until you get a braid. So that's similar to what we've been doing. We just did this color. It went from the left side to the center. Now we're going to take this color. It's going to go from the right side to the center. So we're going to take the string that is closest to the central strings from the right color, and it is going to do 4 backward knots, 1 on each of these strings from the color in the center. I just did 2 rows of that and realized that I entirely forgot to mention that you do that for the remaining strings as well. There you go, the second color is now done. We can put this color off to the side. And we're going to focus on these 2. Now again, if we just went in this direction, now we're going to be going in this direction. So the color on the outside is going to go into the middle. So each of the strings of the color on the left, starting with the one that is closest to this color, is going to do 4 forward knots on each of the strings of the color in the middle. This bracelet creates those outside bubbles, those outside dragging strings, because it omits some of the knots that you need to make a full pattern. If you look at the pattern of this bracelet, you'll notice that there are just some rows where there aren't any knots, and that's what creates that dragging string effect. But in practice, when you're making it, nothing really changes. You just don't make those knots, and the strings kind of end up dragging as you go naturally. So 4 forward knots along each of these strings with each of these strings. This is the part where you might want to be quite careful, because you just did a backward knot in the previous section onto this string with the yellow, and then you're making a forward knot onto it. It ends up kind of pulling on this string a little bit too much, and the color might pop out. Like the wrong string might pop out here. If that does happen, it didn't happen to me, but if it does happen, you just put your finger on the bracelet and kind of pull on this string to pop the color back in. And also you can use your fingers to kind of adjust it a little bit and make sure that correct knots are forming. And then you'll start to see that kind of dragging string effect from probably the second string here. Yep, you can kind of see that string dragging there. And there you go, the third part is done, and you can see those strings kind of dragging along from the top section to the bottom. That's really it. There's only 2 repeating parts kind of to this. So you have the left side with the forward knots, and then you have your right side with the backward knots. So the next step here would be to take this outer color and do backward knots along the middle color. And then you would switch, you would do forward knots, and you would go on and on and on. This bracelet is quite easy because it's only forward and only backward knots. It also takes less time because you're not making all of the knots. So I'm gonna go finish this bracelet off camera, and I'll see you once I'm done. And this is how the bracelets turn out. As you see, I made 4 of these bracelets. I could not stop myself. There are so many different color combinations that you can make, and I think that it'll just look wonderful with any of them, really. I went with kind of monochrome looks for some of them, and then I went with entirely different colors for others. I think they look wonderful on the other side as well. It's just such a cool and unique effect. These bracelets did not take long to make at all because, as I said, they skip a bunch of knots. And that's probably the only reason why I decided to make a collection of them, because I've been burned by collections before. Thinking of the Greek wave collection that I made 8 bracelets of that took forever. No regrets, but not gonna do that again. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope I inspired you to create a bracelet. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to respond to as many as I can, and there is plenty of people that are really helpful in the comments as well. My book, The Beginner's Guide to Friendship Bracelet, is now out. It is available anywhere you typically buy books, and there is also a direct link in the description. It is great for beginners because it has photo tutorials taking you all the way from the basics to the more advanced stuff. I also want to thank my patrons, and especially my top supporters. It is with their support that I'm able to create videos on this channel. If you also want to support me and the work that I do here, the link to that is in the description. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!